You clicked on this video because something in you knows that there is more to imagination than daydreaming. You have heard about SATS. You have perhaps tried it, lying in bed at night, attempting to construct a scene, to feel it real. And maybe you wondered as you drifted off or as you woke the next morning, what exactly is happening in those quiet moments? Is this just visualization? Is it merely a psychological trick to feel better? Or is there something deeper, something that operates at the very threshold of consciousness, where the subjective and the objective meet, where your assumption becomes flesh? I tell you, there is something profound occurring in that drowsy state, something that Neville Goddard understood not only spiritually but practically. He knew that the state you enter just before sleep is not an accident of biology. It is a doorway. It is the place where the conscious mind, with all its doubts and arguments and reasoning, steps aside, and the subconscious, which is the builder of your world, becomes impressionable, moldable, receptive. This is not metaphor. This is the mechanics of creation itself. Tonight we are going to explore what happens in your brain during SATS, the state akin to sleep, and why this particular technique bypasses waking resistance better than any other method you could ever employ. We are going to look at the hypnagogic state, the threshold between waking and sleeping, and understand why it is in that liminal space that your imagination becomes law. We are going to speak plainly about the science, yes, but more importantly, about the truth that Neville lived and taught, that consciousness is the only reality, and that the feeling of the wish fulfilled, impressed upon the subconscious in this receptive state, must and will harden into fact. So settle in. Let your body relax. Let your mind become still. Because by the end of this episode, you will not only understand why SATS works, you will know how to use it with the confidence of one who has seen the invisible and called it forth into the visible. Welcome. If this is your first time here, this channel is dedicated to the teachings of Neville Goddard, one of the most profound mystics and teachers of the 20th century. We do not chase methods. We do not collect techniques like charms on a bracelet. We go deep into the single principle that governs all creation. Consciousness is the only reality. Your awareness, your assumption, your inner state is the cause of everything you experience. And when you learn to direct that consciousness deliberately, particularly in the state akin to sleep, you become the operant power in your world. Today we are going to explore the science and the spirit behind SATS. We are going to understand what is happening in your brain, in your nervous system, in the very fabric of your awareness when you enter that drowsy, delicious state just before sleep, and imagine from the wish fulfilled. And more than that, we are going to show you why this state, more than any other, dissolves resistance, quiets doubt, and allows your assumption to take root in the only ground that matters, your subconscious mind, which Neville called the womb of creation. Let us begin. To understand what happens during SATS, we must first understand what SATS actually is. SATS stands for State Akin to Sleep. It is the state you enter naturally every night as you drift from waking consciousness into sleep. It is that floating, peaceful, half-aware state where you are no longer fully engaged with the outer world, but you are not yet unconscious. You are in between. You are in the threshold. Neville called this the hypnagogic state. Science calls it the same. Hypnagogia is the transitional state of consciousness between wakefulness and sleep. During this state, your brain waves shift. You move from the beta waves of active waking thought down through alpha, the relaxed but alert state, and into theta, the brainwave state associated with deep relaxation, meditation, creativity, and access to the subconscious mind. Theta is the frequency of the border. It is the frequency of the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. The theta is the frequency of the border. It is the precedivity. And here's what you must understand. In the theta state, your conscious mind, which is the seat of your reason, your logic, your doubt, your habitual patterns of thought, begins to quiet. It does not disappear, but it loosens its grip. It stops arguing. It stops presenting you with all the reasons why your desire cannot be, why it has not been, why you are not worthy, why the world does not work that way. The gatekeeper steps aside. And when the gatekeeper steps aside, the subconscious mind, which accepts whatever is impressed upon it without question, without argument, without judgment, becomes wide open. It becomes receptive. It becomes like soft clay ready to be molded by the hand of your imagination. Neville knew this. He said again and again, the subconscious does not reason. It does not argue. It simply accepts what you impress upon it and proceeds to externalize it in your world. The subconscious is the builder. It is the creative power. But it does not create from what you wish for, or hope for, or think about casually during the day. It creates from what you feel to be true. It creates from assumption. It creates from the state you embody, particularly in the moments when your conscious mind is not interfering. This is why SATS works. Because in that drowsy state, you are able to bypass the watchman at the gate. You are able to slip past the conscious mind's resistance and plant your seed, your imaginal act, directly into the subconscious. And once it is planted there, once it is accepted as true, the subconscious goes to work. It begins to rearrange your world, to align circumstances, to draw to you the people, the events, the conditions that correspond to the state you have assumed. Let me give you an example. A woman wrote to Neville years ago. She had been trying for months to manifest a specific sum of money. She needed it urgently. She had tried affirmations. She had tried visualizing during the day. She had tried feeling grateful in advance. But nothing moved. The money did not come. She grew frustrated. She began to doubt. And the more she doubted, the more she noticed the lack. And the more she doubted, the more she noted the lack. And the more the attack persisted. Then she attended one of Neville's lectures, and he told her, "Stop fighting your doubt. Instead, tonight, as you lie in bed, enter into the feeling that the money has already come. Do not visualize yourself receiving it in the future. Construct a short scene that implies it is already done. See yourself holding a bank statement with the amount you desire already deposited. Feel the relief. Feel the satisfaction. Feel the naturalness of it. And do this only as you are drifting off to sleep. Do it in that drowsy state, and then let it go. Let sleep take you." She did exactly that. That very night she lay in bed, and as her body grew heavy and her mind grew quiet, she imagined herself looking at a bank statement. She saw the numbers. She felt the relief wash over her. She did not try to make herself believe it during the day. She did not fight her waking doubt. She simply impressed the feeling upon her subconscious in the state akin to sleep, and then she let it go. 3 days later, an unexpected check arrived in the mail. It was from a source she had completely forgotten, a small investment she had made years prior that had matured. The amount was exactly what she had imagined. This is not coincidence. This is law. The subconscious, impressed with the feeling of the wish fulfilled in the hypnagogic state, accepted it as true and proceeded to make it true in her outer world. Her conscious mind did not need to believe it. Her waking thoughts did not need to be perfect. She did not need to maintain a high vibration all day long. She needed only to impress her subconscious in the one state where it was most receptive, and the rest was automatic. This is the power of SATs. This is why Neville called it the most effective technique he ever taught, because it works with the grain of your consciousness, not against it. It works with the natural rhythm of your brain, not in spite of it. Now let us go deeper. Let us look at what is actually happening neurologically during this state, because understanding the mechanics will give you even greater confidence in the practice. When you enter the hypnagogic state, your brain is not simply relaxing. It is shifting modes. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, critical thinking, and planning, begins to quiet. Its activity diminishes. At the same time, the limbic system, the emotional center of your brain, becomes more active. The amygdala, which processes emotion, and the hippocampus, which consolidates memory, are both highly engaged during this state. This is why the feeling is so important. Neville said, "Feeling is the secret." He did not say thinking is the secret. He did not say thinking is the secret. He did not say visualizing is the secret. He said feeling. Because the subconscious speaks the language of emotion, not the language of words. When you enter SATS and you construct your scene, the vividness of the imagery is helpful, yes. But what seals the impression is the feeling. The feeling is the seal. The feeling is what the subconscious recognizes as real. And here is the profound part. The subconscious cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Neurologically, when you imagine something with sensory detail and emotional involvement, your brain fires in many of the same patterns it would fire if the event were actually happening. The same neural pathways light up. The same neurochemicals are released. Your brain in that moment does not know the difference between the imagined and the real. This is not fantasy. This is neuroscience. Athletes have known this for decades. Mental rehearsal, vividly imagining the perfect performance, has been shown to improve physical performance almost as much as actual practice. Why? Because the brain is being trained. The neural pathways are being carved. The body is responding to the imagined experience as if it were real. Neville understood this long before the brain scans and the studies. He said, "An assumption, though false, if persisted in will, harden into fact." He knew that the subconscious, when impressed with a state, will externalize that state. And the hypnagogic state, the state akin to sleep, is the ideal time to make that impression, because it is the time when your brain is most neurologically receptive, most emotionally engaged, and least resistant. Let me tell you another story, one Neville himself told. There was a man who wanted to travel. He had always dreamed of going to a particular island, but he had no money, no means, no clear path to get there. He could have spent his days worrying about how it would happen. He could have tried to force a plan, but instead he took Neville's instruction. Every night as he lay in bed in that drowsy state, he imagined himself on that island. He did not imagine booking the ticket. He did not imagine earning the money. He imagined the end. He imagined himself already there, feeling the warm sand under his feet, hearing the sound of the waves, smelling the salt air. He did this night after night in the state akin to sleep, until it felt natural, until it felt real. Within weeks, a friend contacted him out of the blue and offered him a free trip to that very island. The friend had won a contest and had an extra ticket. The man did not make it happen through effort or strategy. He made it happen through assumption, impressed upon his subconscious in the one state where assumption becomes law. This is what happens in your brain during SATS. Your conscious resistance falls away. Your emotional centers become active. Your subconscious becomes receptive. And your imagination, fueled by feeling, carves a new neural pathway, a new assumption into the very fabric of your mind. And because consciousness is the only reality, because your outer world is simply a reflection of your inner state, that new assumption must and will externalize. Now let us turn to the question of resistance, because this is where most people falter. During the day, you are bombarded with evidence that contradicts your desire. You look at your bank account and see lack. You look at your relationship status and see loneliness. You look at your body and see limitation. And your conscious mind, which is trained to interpret sensory evidence, says, this is what is real. This is what is true. And so you try to affirm. You try to visualize. You try to feel grateful. But underneath there is a voice that says, but it is not true. But I do not have it. But I am lying to myself. And that voice, that resistance, cancels out your effort. You are trying to plant a seed in soil that is already hardened, already occupied by contrary belief. This is the problem with most techniques that are practiced during full waking consciousness. You are trying to convince a mind that is not ready to be convinced. You are arguing with a mind that has a lifetime of evidence to the contrary. And the harder you push, the more resistance you create. But SATS bypasses all of that. Because in the hypnagogic state, the conscious mind is not arguing. It is not presenting evidence. It is stepping aside. The resistance is dissolving naturally as you drift towards sleep. And in that space, in that quiet receptive space, your imagination can do its work without interference. Neville said, do not go to bed at night harboring false beliefs about yourself, because those beliefs will harden into fact. He understood that the moments before sleep are sacred. They are the moments before sleep are sacred. They are the moments when you are most impressionable, most moldable, most open to suggestion. And if you go to sleep worrying, fearing, dwelling on what you do not want, you are impressing that upon your subconscious just as effectively as if you were deliberately imagining your desire. The subconscious does not judge. It simply accepts and creates. This is why Neville insisted, take control of those moments. Do not leave them to chance. Do not drift off to sleep, replaying the problems of the day, rehearsing conversations you wish you had not had, imagining worst-case scenarios. Instead, use that time deliberately. Enter into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Construct a simple scene that implies your desire is already done, and let that be the last thing you impress upon your subconscious before sleep takes you. Let me walk you through the process, because it is simple, but simplicity is often mistaken for insignificance. Do not be fooled. The simplest state is often mistaken for insignificance. Do not be fooled. The simplest practices are often the most powerful. First, you choose your desire. Be specific. Do not try to manifest 10 things at once. Choose one thing, one state, one wish that you want to embody. It could be a relationship, a sum of money, a career opportunity, a state of health, a state of self-concept. Whatever it is, be clear. Second, you reduce that desire to a single scene, a single moment that would naturally occur after your desire is fulfilled. Neville called this the implied fulfillment. You do not imagine the journey. You imagine the evidence, the proof, the moment that says it is done. If you want a relationship, you might imagine a conversation with a friend in which you refer to your partner. If you want money, you might imagine holding a bank statement or making a purchase you could not make before. If you want a new job, you might imagine sitting at your new desk or receiving congratulations. The scene should be short, simple, repeatable, and natural. Third, you wait until you are in bed, ready to sleep. You let your body relax. You let your breathing slow. You are not meditating in the middle of the day. You are not sitting upright, trying to force yourself into a state. You are simply lying down, comfortable, ready to drift off, and you allow yourself to enter that natural drowsy state. Fourth, you play your scene. You see it. You feel it. You hear it. You engage your senses. You do not strain. You do not try to force vividness. You simply allow the scene to unfold gently, and you feel the feeling that it is real, that it is happening now, that it is done. You do this over and over, looping the scene gently, until you drift off to sleep. And if you fall asleep before you finish, that is perfect, because the feeling, the impression has already been made. And fifth, you let it go. You do not wake up the next morning and immediately check for results. You do not spend your day obsessing over whether it worked. You trust. You assume. You know that the seed has been planted and you allow it to grow in its own time. This is SATS. This is the technique Neville used himself and taught to thousands. And it works because it aligns with the way your brain operates, the way your consciousness creates, the way your subconscious externalizes assumption. Now I know some of you are thinking, but what if I fall asleep too quickly? What if I cannot stay in the scene long enough? Neville addressed this. He said, if you fall asleep in the assumption, you have done your work. The subconscious takes over from there. You do not need to loop the scene for an hour. You do not need to stay awake controlling it. You need only to enter into the feeling, impress it, and let sleep carry you. The moment you release control and drift into sleep, the subconscious is free to work without the interference of your conscious mind. That is the whole point. And what if you have doubt the next day? What if you wake up and the old thoughts return? That is fine, that is natural. You are not trying to maintain a perfect mental state all day. You are simply returning to your practice each night. You are re-impressing your subconscious gently, persistently, until the new state becomes habitual, until the assumption hardens into fact. Neville said, persistence in assuming the wish fulfilled is the key. Not perfection, not flawless belief. Persistence. There was a woman who wanted to marry a specific man. During the day she saw no evidence that this would happen. He was not calling. He was not pursuing her. Her friends told her to move on. But every night she practiced SATS. She imagined wearing a wedding ring. She felt the weight of it on her finger. She imagined a friend congratulating her. She imagined a friend congratulating her. She did this night after night, regardless of what the day showed her. And within a few months, circumstances shifted. The man reached out. Their relationship deepened. And within a year, she was married to him, just as she had imagined. She did not make it happen by daytime effort. She did not manipulate or chase or convince. She simply assumed it was done, impressed that assumption upon her subconscious in the state akin to sleep, and allowed the outer world to conform. This is the mechanics of creation. This is the science behind SATS. Your brain in the hypnagogic state is wired for receptivity. Your subconscious in that state is wired for acceptance. And your imagination, impressed with feeling, is wired for externalization. These are not accidents, these are laws. And when you align yourself with these laws, you become the operant power in your world. Now let us go deeper still, because the practical application is only half of the story. The other half is the truth of who you are, and why this technique is not merely a tool, but a revelation of your true nature. Neville taught that you are not a body with a consciousness. You are consciousness in a body. You are not a human being trying to become spiritual. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. And the power that creates your world is not outside of you. It is you. It is your awareness, your assumption, your imagination fused with feeling. When you practice SATS, you are not trying to influence some external force. You are not sending requests to the universe. You are not asking for permission. You are claiming. You are assuming. You are taking your seat as the operant power. You are recognizing that the outer world, with all its seeming solidity and independence, is in fact yourself pushed out, a reflection of the state you are occupying within. Neville said, "The world is yourself pushed out, a reflection of the state you are occupying within." Neville said, "The world is yourself pushed out. Ask yourself what you want, and then give it to yourself." He did not say, "Ask the world and hope it gives it to you." He said, "Because you are the giver and the receiver, you are the one imagining and the one experiencing the imagined. There is no separation. And this is where the science and the spirit converge. Because what is happening in your brain during SATS, the quieting of the conscious mind, the activation of the emotional centers, the receptivity of the subconscious, is not just a neurological phenomenon. It is a spiritual one. It is the mechanics of creation because you are the creator. You are not using a law that is separate from you. You are the law. Consciousness is the only reality, and you are consciousness itself. This is why SATS works when other techniques fail, because it is not a technique in the way most people think of techniques. It is not a method you perform from the outside hoping to get a result. It is a practice of returning to your true nature. It is a practice of stilling the false self, the limited self, the self that believes it is at the mercy of the world, and allowing the true self, the I am, to speak. And when the I am speaks, when the I am assumes, when the I am assumes and the I am feels itself to be in possession of the desire, the outer world has no choice but to conform. Neville often quoted scripture, not as religion, but as psychology. He loved the words of Jesus, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Believe that you have received it. Not believe that you will receive it. Not hope that you might receive it. Believe that you have received it. Present tense, already done. And how do you believe that you have received it? Present tense, already done. And how do you believe that you have received it? By entering into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, by assuming the state, by impressing it upon your subconscious in the one moment when that impression can take root without resistance. This is prayer, not begging, not pleading, not asking some distant deity for favor. Prayer is the act of assuming the wish fulfilled and feeling the reality of that assumption. And the most powerful time to pray, in Neville's teaching, is the state akin to sleep, because that is when your prayer, your assumption, bypasses every barrier and plants itself in the fertile ground of the subconscious. Think of it this way. During the day, you are a gardener working in hard, rocky soil. You can dig and you can plant, but the ground resists you. The weeds of doubt and fear and habit are thick. But in the state akin to sleep, the soil is soft, moist, ready. You can plant your seed with ease and it sinks deep without effort. And once it is planted, once it takes root, it will grow. It must grow, because that is the nature of seeds. That is the nature of assumptions. That is the nature of assumptions. That is the nature of consciousness. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows." In other words, once you assume the state, your attention, your thoughts, your actions, your very experience will begin to follow a new route. You will notice things you did not notice before. You will be drawn to opportunities you would have missed. You will meet people who align with your new state, not because the world has changed independently of you, but because you have changed, and the world is reflecting that change. This is not magic in the superstitious sense. This is the deepest magic there is, the magic of consciousness creating reality. And it is available to you every single night, in those quiet moments before sleep, if you will only claim it. So let us bring this into practice. Tonight, as you prepare for bed, you have a choice. You can let your mind wander where it will. You can rehash the day, worry about tomorrow, dwell on problems, replay old hurts. Or you can take control. You can decide what state you will assume. You can decide what seed you will plant in the garden of your subconscious. Choose one desire, one thing you want to embody, and reduce it to a scene. Make it simple. Make it natural. Make it something that implies the wish is already fulfilled. If you want confidence, imagine a friend telling you how confident you seem. If you want health, imagine feeling the presence of your beloved beside you. If you want love, imagine feeling the presence of your beloved beside you. If you want abundance, imagine the relief of seeing your bank account full. And tonight, as you lie in bed and your body begins to relax and your mind begins to drift, play that scene. Do not strain. Do not force. Simply let it unfold gently in your imagination and feel it real. Feel the naturalness of it. And as you loop it gently, let yourself drift into sleep. Let the feeling carry you. And trust that the seed has been planted. Do this not just tonight, but every night until the assumption feels natural, until it no longer feels like you are pretending, until it simply feels true. That is when you know the impression has been made. That is when you know the subconscious has accepted it. And from that point, the externalization is inevitable. You do not need to know how. You do not need to plan the steps. You do not need to figure out the bridge of incidents. The subconscious will do that. The outer world will rearrange itself to match your inner state. Your job is simply to assume, to feel, to persist. And if doubts arise during the day, do not fight them. Do not try to maintain a perfect mental diet. Simply notice them, acknowledge them, and then return to your assumption at night. The night practice is what matters most. The night practice is what the real work is done, because it is in the hypnagogic state, in the threshold between waking and sleeping, that the conscious mind steps aside and the subconscious becomes the open door. This is the science behind SATS. This is why it works. Not because Neville said so, though he did. Not because Neville said so, though he did. Not because it sounds mystical, though it is. But because it aligns with the way your brain operates, the way your consciousness creates, the way your inner state externalizes into your outer world. You are not trying to change the world. You are changing yourself. You are changing your state. And when you change your state, the world must change, because the world is yourself pushed out. Let us pause and reflect on the deeper truth here. You are not a powerless being hoping for good fortune. You are not a victim of circumstance waiting for the right conditions to appear. You are not a victim of circumstance waiting for the right conditions to appear. You are not a victim of the human being. And the power that raised Jesus from the dead, the power that spoke the worlds into being, the power that sustains the stars in their courses, that power is within you. It is you. It is you. It is your I am. And when you enter the state akin to sleep and you assume the wish fulfilled, you are not manipulating some external force. You are aligning with your true nature. You are remembering who you are. You are claiming your birthright as the operant power. Neville said, "You are told in the book of Genesis, 'Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion.'" Dominion, not subjugation, not victimhood. Dominion. Dominion over what? Over the outer world, which is simply the reflection of your inner state. And how do you exercise that dominion? Not through force, not through struggle, but through assumption, through imagination, through entering into the feeling of the wish fulfilled and allowing that feeling to impress itself upon the subconscious, which is the womb of all creation. This is your dominion. This is your inheritance. And every night in those precious moments before sleep, you have the opportunity to claim it. So do not take those moments lightly. Do not waste them on worry or regret or idle thought. Use them. Direct them. Enter into the state of your wish fulfilled. Feel it real and let sleep seal the impression. This is not a practice for some day. This is not a technique to try when you have time. This is the practice. This is the way. This is how you create your world. One assumption at a time. One night at a time. One feeling at a time. One feeling at a time. One feeling at a time. And as you persist, as you return night after night to the assumption of the wish fulfilled, you will begin to notice something. The outer world will shift. Circumstances will rearrange. People will come into your life. Opportunities will appear. Not because you forced them, but because you assumed them. Not because you manipulated the world, but because you changed yourself. And the world, being yourself pushed out, had no choice but to conform. This is the promise. This is the law. This is the science and the spirit of SATs. And so, as we come to the close of this episode, I want you to take this with you. The state akin to sleep is not just a time of day. It is a sacred space. It is the threshold where the human and the divine meet, where the conscious and the subconscious merge, where your imagination becomes law. Every night you stand at that threshold, and every night you have a choice. You can cross it unconsciously, carrying with you the burdens and doubts and fears of the day, or you can cross it consciously, carrying with you the assumption of the wish fulfilled, the feeling of the state you desire, the seed of the world you want to experience. The science is pair. The hypnagogic state is the time when your brain is most receptive, most open, most free from resistance. The subconscious, in that state, does not argue, it does not doubt. It accepts, and whatever you impress upon it with feeling, it will externalize in your world. But beyond the science is the truth. You are not a small self trying to get something from a big world. You are consciousness itself, and the world is your creation. The outer is always a reflection of the inner. And when you change the inner, when you assume a new state, when you feel it real in the state, akin to sleep, the outer must follow. This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is how creation works. This is how you create. And tonight you will have the opportunity to prove it to yourself. So tonight, as you prepare for sleep, choose your scene. Choose your desire. Reduce it to a single moment that implies it is done. And as you drift into that drowsy, delicious state, play that scene. Feel it real. Feel the satisfaction, the relief, the naturalness of it. And let sleep take you in that assumption. Do not judge it by tomorrow. Do not look for immediate results. Simply persist and watch as your world begins to conform to the state you have assumed. You are not powerless. You are not limited. You are not at the mercy of a capricious universe. You are the operant power. You are the creator. And the state akin to sleep is your creative hour. So use it. Dare to assume. Dare to feel. Dare to claim the wish fulfilled. I tell you, it will harden into fact. Not because I say so, but because it is law. Because is I. Because it is. Because you are that consciousness. And because the world is, and always has been, yourself pushed out. Go now and sleep, in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, and awaken to a world that reflects the state you claimed in the silence of the night. This is the science behind SATs. This is why it works, and this is your power, waiting to be used. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next episode.